Hi, and welcome to our Cyber Short series with Sophos, a LinkedIn Live series with the goal to bring you insights on trending cybersecurity topics. I'm Susie Evershed, and I'm joined today by Eric Escobar, Red Team Technical Lead for the Sophos Advisory Services. Thanks for joining us, Eric.
How's it going, Susie?
Good, thank you. Um, this is a slightly different Cyber Shorts for us because I get to quiz you all about the Red Team. So let's start there. Can you please tell us a little bit about the Sophos Red Team and what you do day to day?
Yeah, we have the absolute coolest jobs on the planet. Every time I, am hopping into a different engagement, it is something that you'd see in a movie. Effectively, what our team does is we break into our clients who give us permission, obviously, to find the real ways that real threat actors break into the organization. And so we get to do everything from, breaking into banks to stealing secret formulas to breaking into hospitals, local governments. I mean, you name it, we've probably compromised it. We have different clients every couple of weeks, and it's the absolute coolest job in the entire world. And if we didn't have permission to do what we do, I'd have probably several hundred felonies just today alone. So it's super
I think
fun.
that is the important thing here. Everything is done with permission, and
Yes.
everything behind you. We're not digging into what's behind you today, but there's all kinds of crazy equipment that you use behind you. So we know you've got so many interesting stories to tell. It's really hard to kind of work out where to start when we're telling people. But one of the interesting things that we were discussing was some of the work you've done, kind of with healthcare. I mean, there's a bank heist, but we'll come back to that. Healthcare, and just thinking about the ways that people are obviously really worried about how much of their data is stored within healthcare organizations. Talk to us about a recent kind of one of the things you've done with maybe like a hospital.
Yeah, so we our approach to like our type of work is we do something called goal-based. Goal-based testing is what is the thing that keeps the network administrators, the owners of the business, what is the thing that keeps them awake at night?
Hmm.
One of the things that obviously does is ransomware. So oftentimes we'll simulate ransomware. But when you look at a hospital, there's a whole lot of different other avenues and aspects of it that make it a little bit more than just any other normal business. So when you look at like, kind of the inner workings of a hospital, you have the building control system. So can you turn the lights off, turn off the backup generators? Can you shut
Right.
off the OR mid-surgery? Those are big things. If your house loses power, not that big of a deal. But if you're in the middle of open heart surgery, really big deal. So building control systems, taking and looking at things like patient data, right? All that is some of the most sensitive data about somebody is their healthcare data. So it includes, all their obviously their very personal medical data, but also their social security number, their insurance, where they live, all
Hmm.
of the other sensitive, PII that's out there about that individual, what is there. Then you also just look at the billing system. So the money that moves in and out of the hospital, the
Right.
ordering that moves in and out. So we went into a hospital and said, what are you afraid of? And so we walked them through kind of some of the sample scenarios. And so we were able to basically take over things like their building control system. We were able to take over things. They made a fictitious user in their like patient management system that was a celebrity name. And so they're like, hey, this celebrity name, you are able to go after all of their data because it was just fictitious, right? So, but that
Right.
was really interesting because when we brought that to the to their C-suite, to their board, we showed not just, oh, you're vulnerable, you got to patch your systems, but like, look, this is what's possible, right? Like we could steal any user's data, any patient's data out of the system. This is why you need, all the suite of things that they need to protect themselves. So it's just kind of cool doing it from that perspective. Also near and dear to my heart. I have three kids, so I've been in a hospital quite a bit for their birth, and it's like, gosh, I cannot imagine should some cyber event happen, while my wife's in middle of labor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, so I mean that's just one of the many things that we do. I don't know if you have any other questions about the hospital, but we've done lots of medical device testing, lots and lots of hospitals, anywhere from vishing, phishing, all that kind of good stuff.
And are there any, I guess, thinking about the hospitals in particular, so we know what they're worried about. Are there any kind of commonalities that you do find anything in particular that where they're more vulnerable, or is it very much a kind of case by case basis?
The thing that is kind of that I find hospitals are more vulnerable with is everything is just in time, everything is urgent, everything needs to happen right away.
Right.
So there's not a lot of time, if you're just a general, like say office, user, or you're just a general person that sits at a desk, and you get a phishing email, you have a little bit more time to scrutinize it. You have a little bit more time to look at the email headers, see if this is a legitimate request. Whereas in a hospital, I mean, we've compromised several hospitals by just sending some urgent emails about HIPAA training to a surgeon, and then that surgeon's just like, well, if I can't practice, medicine, I'm about to go into surgery, and if legally you can't because he didn't do the HIPAA training, right? These are the things
Mhm.
that we build on that urgency, and hospitals are basically built on urgency. So it's a lot more easy to basically take advantage of that urgency for lack of a better term.
And when we were talking about this, we kind of the deviation went from kind of like hospitals to city hall, like, obviously things like it's not even just kind of the concerns like immediately within the hospital, right? Because if something like the water gets shut down because of an attack outside, like that can have an impact as well. So do you look at that? Do you look at kind of where the third party risk is for them as well?
Yeah, so I mean, we do. So my background, going back before computers, before everything, my parents like to say, "Oh, Eric is an engineer." I went to school to be a civil engineer, which builds buildings, hospitals, roadways, like critical infrastructure stuff. Like technically in California, I'm licensed to be an engineer, even though I haven't practiced it in quite some time. But when we do testing for things like critical infrastructure, I mean, we've done testing for, water municipalities, for power generation, for all the things that make government tick, that make society tick. And one of those is just being local government. And so
Mm,
it's one of those things that when you look at like a local government, take like a small city. We've done testing from federal side to the large counties to large cities to even just small cities, small municipalities, like all those sorts
mm,
of things. But one of the things is that when they're building out typically their tech stack, these cities and municipalities typically predate the internet, which means they have some very old things that are on their networks because, again, they've existed before the internet
yeah.
exists. They typically aren't the most well-funded things on the planet, right? They have a lot of technical debt kind of associated, and the other thing too is that they're all really well connected together. So we've basically found, hey, City Hall is connected to the sheriff's office is connected to to the jail is connected to fire department, and so everything's kind of interwoven, interconnected because they're all city municipal employees, that sort of a thing. So compromising, a firefighter's email might lead you into City Hall or into the jail. Everything's so woven together, which is great when they're trying to collaborate on things that involve the city.
Hmm.
But when it involves a threat actor moving laterally through your network, that can oftentimes be the downfall of it. So, yeah, cities, municipalities, all that critical infrastructure stuff is all very interesting, and again, given my background, very near and dear to my heart.
So, I mean, we know that you love your job. You're having a great time. You do the good stuff. But like let's kind of like bring this back. So what, once you've got in, once you've kind of gone through the process with an organization and said, okay, what are you worried about? Let us test. Let's find out what the vulnerabilities are. What happens next? Like where do people kind of what do you give them that they kind of move forward with?
Yeah, so it's funny because if nobody's ever done a test with us, they think like, oh my gosh, Eric is going to be like my math teacher and is going to check my work and show all the ways that I did something wrong. When in reality, most of the time, what ends up happening is that the IT person, the system administrator, the CISO, they know the things that they need to do. They know where they're potentially lacking in it, in their security realm. But what we provide is basically the proof that they need to go tell their directors, their supervisors, their board of directors, hey, guess what, guys? Like we need this budget, this funding, this headcount, this training. Sorry, my phone is blowing, or my phone, my calendar is blowing up. But sorry, what is going on?
Don't worry, it's fine.
Don't worry. All right. Hopefully you guys can't hear it that much.
It
Uh, but
just shows
one
you're
of
popular.
yeah, right. Not wrong. It's probably, probably is probably one of my passwords finished cracking is what it is. But the like ultimately what it comes down to is the client, what they get on their end is not just like a poor report card. They get the justification to basically say, hey, this is why we need the budget, the headcount, the tools, the training,
Yeah,
all of these things. And then we talk to their technical team, we walk them through potentially any ways that we were able to compromise them. And they basically just get a security partner that does this day in and day out. And how often can you phone up a hacker and say, hey, this is what we're able to do, and this is, the way that we're able to do it. And so that's kind of what we provide.
that's amazing. And I mean, we've kind of talked about, you've mentioned kind of smaller organizations, but the work you do isn't, it's enterprise wide, it's for small businesses. What you do is really for anyone who's worried about security. But why do you think like offensive testing in this way is so important? It's not just reactive security, but why is this offensive testing so important?
I think, I mean, offensive, it's one of those things. If you have, say, a fire alarm in your house, right, or a fire alarm in a school or a hospital, right, because we're talking about hospitals, what happens when you pull that fire alarm, right? Everybody thinks that the fire department's going to come in 5 minutes with hoses and all those sorts of things. But when was the last time that somebody checked that? And that's what doing offensive testing does, is it puts you, your organization, your team through a live fire exercise of what does it mean when a compromise starts? Can you not just, detect me? Can you, how soon can you detect me? Do your tools work the way that they expect? When you get an alert, do you really know what that alert means? Do those alerts even go to the right place? We've done testing for an
Mm.
organization where the head person that set up all the security infrastructure left, and so all the alerts were going to their inbox, and no one else was receiving them. And so I do this test, and I, steal everything from this organization, right, given permission, and they're like, we didn't receive an entire alert. What gives? And so we start digging into it and we look and we say, oh, well, they're all going to this inbox. Who's this inbox? And it's like, oh, that person left, right? And so those are the things to doing this offensive testing. It's one thing to have the tools. It's one thing to have, it's one thing to have like all of your training, all your budget, all this stuff. But what actually happens when a real threat comes knocking? Do you have
Hmm.
staff? Do they have the training? Do they understand what the alerts look like? And so there's really no other good way to simulate a real threat other than seeing the real thing. And that's what we are. We're the real thing. Only you can phone us up and ask us, hey, what'd you just do? We're curious.
And you give it all
Um,
back.
yeah, exactly.
That's it. Thank you so much. I mean, Eric, we could talk for hours. Please join us again. We'd love to speak to you and more of the team on our cyber shorts over the next, the months ahead. But thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in. Please join us again for future cyber shorts episodes. And for more insights and information, please make sure you're reading our blog and following our social channels.